Hello everyone, this is Eric, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of The Excitement of the Do-Re-Mi-Fa Girl, also known as Bumpkin Soup, a Japanese comedy from 1985 that stars Yoriko Doguchi and Juzo Itami. It was directed by Kiyoshi Kurosawa, a man who gave us some of the greatest Japanese horror and thriller films of all time, Cure and Pulse being two examples. However, even some Japanese horror enthusiasts may be unaware that he directed a few semi-erotic films during the early portion of his career, The Excitement of the Do-Re-Mi-Fa Girl being one of them. In fact, these films got Kurosawa into some trouble with the studios. It seems as though he frustrated some of their executives by not giving them the softcore porn that they were expecting. And Japan made a bunch of movies like this back in the day, like direct-to-video stuff. And I would like to quote Jasper Sharp's book, Behind the Pink Curtain, The Complete History of Japanese Sex Cinema. In reference to Kiyoshi's debut feature film from 1983, a few years before this one, which was titled The Kandagawa Pervert Wars. These films had great titles, right? Sharp mentions this, quote, "That film was almost weird enough to put an end to his career before it had even begun properly. Kurosawa's playful mannerisms and film buff in-jokes must have come across to his backers as sarcastic and irreverent. He was given one more chance within the pink genre and set to work on College Girl, Shameful Seminar. This time, upon viewing what he'd shot, his employees at Million Film thought Kurosawa had gone too far, or perhaps actually not far enough. Given the excuse that the resulting film was not sexy enough, they shelved it. And with the assistance of the director's company, Kurosawa bought back the unreleased footage and then reworked it to make the non-pink film The Excitement of the Do-Re-Mi-Fa Girl. Nevertheless, the incident set back the willful director's career by several years," unquote. So, in a nutshell, he wanted to make an interesting movie, even if it was originally meant to be lowbrow entertainment, and pretty amusing backstory for this film. But is this movie any good? Well, let's find out. So the following plot synopsis was taken from a website, Japan on Film, a good website. The country girl Akiko, played by Yoriko Doguchi, appears at a university campus in search of Yoshioka, the boy she has determined to marry, apparently because he took her virginity. And she wanders into, not in a world of study, but a continuously weird series of behaviors. And as she says, it's more like a constant festival or circus than a school. And Yoshioka hasn't appeared in his classes for weeks, but Akiko, in her search, eventually wanders into the attention of Professor Hirayama, played by Juzo Itami, a man trying to quantify or at least develop a theory of shame. So if you're a fan of this director, this is a pretty interesting watch, because even this early in Kiyoshi Kurosawa's career, you can see his talent, just in how the movie is presented and directed. A nice use of light and color, very nice framing of shots. It's very visually engaging despite a minuscule budget. And as one example, there's a scene early on where a guy has a small bouquet of flowers, and he walks up behind a girl to give them to her. And it's a very odd tracking shot, but it's really neat. Kind of hard to describe, but if you watch the film, you'll know what I'm talking about. And there's plenty of little moments like that are impressive from like a directing standpoint. Now, this is a comedy, and the comedy is kind of low-key, actually. One example near the beginning is a guy who makes a door out of paper. It's like a little house kind of in the woods, and a little study area, I guess you could say, on campus. And the front door is just made of paper. And, the protagonist girl, calls in, is anybody in there? And he rips out a little piece of paper out of the door and uses it as, a peephole. And then he shows her, where to go, and just kind of punches his hand through the door and, points in a direction. Very, very kind of odd type stuff, but it's pretty amusing. There are also some scholarly gags. Like students who are reading their psychology books, and it has weird titles on it that might make you laugh. And I've discussed this director's surprising sense of humor in prior reviews on this channel. He's famous for his more serious stuff, the horror and the thrillers and the dramas, but I do enjoy his comedies. And so if you like oddball art house style comedy, this film may amuse you. There are some mini lectures by the professor, some of which deal directly with the concept of shame or being shameful, and that kind of segues into the naughtier content in the film. The monologues in this film definitely have a little bit of an artsy-fartsy feel to it. I mean, the whole film does. And this is true for a lot of Japanese pink films, as they called them back in the day. Perhaps slightly pretentious in its feel, but still far more interesting than your run-of-the-mill erotic film, from Japan or most places. Typically from the pink films that I've seen and the Japanese exploitation films I've seen, sometimes there's so much nudity and sexual content it just becomes monotonous and boring. Sometimes not, and this is a case where that did not happen. There are only maybe a small handful of relatively short scenes of naughtiness, as you could say. Now, instead, this movie actually follows our protagonist as she meets a number of oddball students on this university, and that develops into a surprisingly, charming little journey. And I've been a fan of this actress, Yoriko Doguchi, for ages, ever since I saw her in Kiyoshi's later films, Cure and Charisma specifically. And she has a certain screen presence about her, and I always enjoy seeing her pop up and stuff. Quite a treat here because she's the lead. And I mentioned Juzo Itami in the supporting role. Interesting seeing him in an acting role because he's most well known for some of his fantastic directorial efforts. Tampopo and The Funeral being two examples. So he's a good actor, and he pulls off the professor shtick quite well. The film's only 1 hour and 20 minutes long. It's short. I think the excitement of the Do Re Mi Fa Girl is an interesting little film from a legendary director, really. Not a film for everyone. I mean, just from what I've been talking about, you may or may not be interested in this, right? I mean, if you're a fan of this director and you're open to lower budget art house style comedy with a little bit of an erotic charge to it, check it out. It's quite different. It is. It is available on YouTube with subtitles in surprisingly high resolution. I'll include a link in the description box below. I think the video was made private by whoever uploaded it, so you need a link to really get to it. And check it out while it's on YouTube, because who knows how long it'll be up. And as always, folks, I'll see you next time.